Welcome back, fellow gardeners. You must be wondering why I'm standing in the middle of this bush. But today I want to talk to you about the Crocosmia plant, and where I originally had it is here under my tree. Now the reason is why it's not flowering at the moment is the location. Before is I used to have it in a different location, but it was too shady. Then I decided to grow it here. But as we're going through our cold spell, some plants don't flower. But as soon as the hot spell does come, it will be in its glory, because my coral tree starts losing its leaves during the hot season and only flowers. That means my Crocosmia is going to be actually really happy and give me blooms. So welcome back. My name is Alice and I'm the Redsoil Gardener. The Crocosmia plant. Now this is what it looks like, and if it does flower, as I will pull one of these flowers out of the vase, is you get a central stem that comes from there, so you get this abundance of color. Now the thing about it is that there are many hybrids that you can get, but at the same time is that you do have them in its natural environment in South Africa. Now, as I mentioned, is that its native place is South Africa in the Western Cape. And the beautiful thing about the Crocosmia is that you do find it on rocky patches or on sandstone, because it is so hardy. Now what happens in Europe is that you do get hybrids where you do get bigger flowers and different colors, because they range from orange, yellow, red, scarlet, and you even have a bicolor Crocosmia flower. So when you do go to your garden center, please do inquire and ask them which is the most common Crocosmia plant, what color does the blooms give you. So in the end, as you're landscaping, you can match those colors of the plant to the other flowers. Now what happens is with this plant is that there are two ways to actually divide the plant to do a propagation. One of the methods is that if you do have the plant, it does produce seeds. Now what happens is, if I take this one out, is what happens is as the flowers do get spent, you're left with all these little bubbles on the side, and that is your seed. So once they do dry out, what you do is actually collect them and you can sow and germinate them. What I did with my Crocosmia, I have one there, I have this one and another one in the garden, is I did grow them all in pots. First of all is I wasn't sure where I really wanted them to be, and second thing is that once you do actually grow them, is that these combs, which will actually open up and have a look, which are they look almost like dried up bulbs, but these combs do spread and multiply very, very quickly. Now, if you do get certain breeds of the Crocosmia plant, they do say it is invasive, because at the rate it sort of multiplies itself and then it does self-seed. So also when you do plan in your garden where you will have this plant, plant it in an area where there is enough space and that it doesn't interfere too much with its surrounding plant, because it does actually spread. Now let's look at the sun requirement. What happens with this particular plant is that it does like full sun. The more it gets full sun, the more it's going to flower. Now when it does flower, what you need to do is that if the flower does get spent, is a bit like the iris, is that you just go down and you snip that stem, and again it will start producing. What sort of water, soil does it want? It wants a well-drained soil, and you can have like a compost in there. You need something that will retain the moisture also. Now the thing is that what happens is that if the soil is not moist, because it does like a slightly moist soil, but if the soil does get dry, what happens, it does stunt the growth of the plant. Now what happens is that once you do have this plant, is that it does bloom, and it does bloom sort of from mid-summer right up to mid-fall. And then the beauty about it is that it is a late bloomer. So having it in your garden or in a pot, you're guaranteed when the other flowers actually finish their bloom and suddenly you get this plant producing its bloom, at least your garden will have still a bit of color. So one thing you have to be careful because of these culms is that what happens is that if you do overwater, you could get rot. So just be very gentle with your watering. Now what I'm going to do now is actually remove it so we can have a look at this. We can have a look at it. Now this plant I actually started propagating maybe about 3-4 months ago, and basically is what I used is the very young combs. And so let's have a look and see what has happened in here. So all I'm going to do is actually gently remove this plant and we have a look. Now, once we've removed it, I'm just going to break it up a bit so that we can actually look and see what is happening in there. And what happens also with these combs is that, what happens with these combs is that sometimes is like if you do have like bulbs, you know that the bulb will multiply outwards. But these particular combs is that what happens is the old one stays and then the young one climbs on top, and it continues like this sort of vertical chain, and that's what happens. So the younger babies actually keep moving up to the top of the soil, but that is not a problem. So now as I break this, let's see what happens here. And they were quite small. And what they're going to do is, these are the ones that I could actually move into a bigger pot. And here is one of those combs. Must be gentle. Here we have the original mother, and all these babies are reaching out, and it will actually form its own comb here. But this is what it looks like once you've actually separated. And you can see this one's already in the process of actually going independent. And this is the original mother. There she is. And here I have another one, a comb, and one here. And this could have been the original one. But again, you see the rooting there. And I could actually take this one and plant it upwards. So once you've understood this, so once you do have your little garden, is do separate what you have after the second season once you bought it, and out of it you will get plenty of babies. So basically, now when we look at this and we're saying, if you do a propagation, or you do get someone giving you these as plants, is once you do start your propagation, or even store them while you're thinking about what to do next, is as it grows, you will get babies all forming from the mother plant, and then they do go independent and move upwards, and you will get many of those cones. Now I'm going to place this here, and then what I'm going to do is actually move these babies into a bigger pot here, and then as I think what I'm going to do with this, either have it in a space that I can let it flow freely and actually move along, and I won't look at it as being invasive. So what I'm going to do is actually return some of this moisture in. Such lovely soil. It's actually very well draining, and I did put a bit of grit in there so everything just flows through. So I'm going to take these babies and just put them back here like that. And then now that we've seen what it looks like, and of course all these babies, by the time I figure out what I want to do, is most probably they would have formed its own combs, and like the mother, and then go independent. There's another one. And just get them in. This one I need upright. So what I'm going to do is, having looked at the situation here with all these babies, I'm just going to put my gloves on, and I think we'll carry out this propagation very differently. Is these babies, I will still replant them somewhere and wait for them to actually get a bit stronger. But the ones here, which actually have the cones, is like this one here. Well, I could remove this one here, but these ones I will continue planting it, because now that we've seen exactly that you do get the mother and you get the babies forming all around, and these are the old ones. But what I'm going to do is put it back here, and then I'm going to wait and see where we're going to plant all these flowers. So what I'm going to do is just go in here, make your hole deep enough, a good well draining, and with a lot of, we said, organic stuff, fertile organic, and I will just place it here with enough space so my combs feel comfortable, just like that. And then I will take the next one and place him in here, just like that. And then just to make sure that I've got it the right way up. So the rooting is here on this side. So what I'm going to do is actually have the rooting downwards, because that's the way it's supposed to be. So the other one, as we've seen, it's actually looking quite good. Again, I'm going to just plant it in here. And here is our multitude of babies, which again, as you plant them, is they'll form their own cones, and then in the end, I might as well plant this one. In the end, you can actually use that as a clump and move on. So I'll just throw this one back in here. Again, a really nice comb there. So I'll just move it in here like that and cover it. And then just take this one and completely fill it up. There we go. So now we've seen exactly what the combs look like. Now the thing is that if you're living in a colder country and you do colder region and you do have your Crocosmia in the ground, what I would actually do is once the flowers have been spent and the winter is getting close now to fall, is just allow your foliage to die down naturally. And as it dies down, what happens is that you're actually giving all the nutrients through the photosynthesis of the leaves. You're giving all those nutrients and preparing the combs for the winter. Once you do get in winter, is that basically is you take your combs, separate them, and then dry them, remove the soil, dry them, and you can spray them with a bit of fungicide just to keep all those diseases away. And then you store it in your garage or in your greenhouse somewhere warm. And as soon as spring does come and you see growth on your combs, what you do is you do bring them out and plant. However, the only thing with this particular plant is it doesn't like cold weather. So once it is cold, if the soil is still cold in spring, don't plant it until after this last freeze, and as it gets warmer, then you can plant this plant. So fellow gardeners, I will actually put this on Instagram, because I will now move all those, and even the one at the bottom. I'm going to look for a sunny spot where I can actually put them so that they can flower, because our cold season only lasts for another month, and it's not actually that cold, but we do feel it. But once the sun does come up, I'm so sure my Crocosmia is going to be blooming, and then I can have my cut flowers in my house. So thank you so much for following this channel. Thank you, and don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe to the channel. Invite your friends, invite your cousins, invite everyone. We do have fun. And don't forget, I'm on Instagram. I do always answer any questions. DM me, I'm always there for you. And on YouTube, I do answer you when you do send. And some of your comments are really great because I'm also learning. And basically, have a lovely day, and do go and get yourself one of these Crocosmia. And if it is an invasive species, all you make sure is don't let it go into seed production, and also try to contain it in your garden. Thank you so much for following us. Bye.